It's that time. Welcome back to the third episode of Textbook to Reality Check podcast. Yay! What is up, y'all? I am your host, Bianca, and I'm so happy that you're here. So let's check in, shall we? What are we here to do today? What has God placed on your heart to join us in here? And what have you stumbled upon? This podcast is where we dissect the Bible, our basic instructions before leaving Earth, and allow that to teach us how it connects to our spiritual walk in our reality. The Bible was written so many years ago, and Jesus used parables to connect to his audience. And most were farmers and harvesters, Romans, Jews, and the list goes on. But it can become confusing when you're living in a 2023 world and the way you walk, talk, and live is so different. So it can make you choose not to want to go down that pathway or confuse you every time you try to open the Bible. I get it. I totally get that. But that's why you're going to join me here on Tuesdays where we dissect it into little bits and leave no crumbs. We're going to armor ourselves against the enemy, who is the devil, and he comes to distract, destroy, and kill what God has placed on you. And that's a calling, your purpose. And what does he use? His old tricks. And what are his tricks? Anxiety, depression, addiction, consumption, envy, and the list goes on. But as we armor ourselves, we're starting to understand that's just the enemy trying to stop me from the blessing God has for me. And we're able to fight by using the textbook. So we're going to jump into that because we're going to understand that the enemy's not going to stop. So neither will we. So what did we talk about in episode 1? We understood that we don't want to be the barking dog, the ostrich, or the cow. Not calling you those things, just connected those things. So we want to bison up. We don't want to panic. We want to acknowledge the storm and go through the storm. Walk into it knowing that it won't last forever. It came to make you strong. Last week, episode 2, we understand the importance of how and when we walk out of a season. We don't want to carry the matches and the kerosene, which is the strife and the confliction and the abandonment feelings and the pain and the emotions with us as we go into our next season, our next blessing. So what are we going to dissect tonight? We're going to dissect and get to know the importance of the company we keep. So in case you didn't know, it is important to be mindful of who is driving and who's riding along. We're going to understand that, yes, it's fun to go places and go and do things, but who you do it with is also important. Everyone loves the invitation, but there's questions that we need to ask. And I learned this at a young age. When I was in high school, in junior and senior year, you were allowed to leave campus. And this was the most amazing moment of every senior and junior's life when we got to actually get the invitation from our friends. Hey, do you want to come with us to Wendy's? Hey, do you want to go to Chick-fil-A? Or if you were risky, cookout, right? So when you got the invitation, the next thing you would ask was, who's driving? Because you want to know if you're going to be in a gross car. If this car is a hoopty, nasty, not going to make it down 2 lights, right? And now you're stuck on the side of the road. And now you get count as absent in class. Or are they going to overpack the car? These things are important. Are they going to extort you for money just for a 5-minute drive down the road, saying that they need more gas? You know, those kind of things. And so once you understood who was driving, allowed you to reflect on, is this worth my 30 to 35 minutes of freedom? Because this experience of transporting me is going to impact my peace and my freedom, and I can't do all that. So understanding who was driving was important. The second question I would ask as this junior high schooler who got the invitation, right, is who's riding along? Because if I'm going to ride in a car with someone that's just chain smoking cigarettes a bunch, or has a couple in the backseat that won't stop making out, or we have a crybaby, no offense, I used to be one myself, but just wanted to complain and talk crud, I would choose to rather stay on the campus because I don't want to have to, again, compromise my peace and affect my purpose, which is for me to get food in this 30 to 35 minutes in peace and happiness and enjoy the freedom I've been gifted by the high school. So, understanding this allowed you to see at a young age, or me at least in a young age, the importance of asking the question of who's driving and who's riding along. It would affect my peace, my purpose, and ultimately make me regret how I gave my freedom away. So we're going to jump into a story time that connects to this topic of knowing the importance behind who's riding and who's driving. So we're in Acts 15:36. We're going to move around there, but we're also going to move on to the next chapter of Acts 16 to 40. I think it's 40. So who are our main characters in this one? Paul and Barnabas. They're homies. They're best buddies. They've actually gone from city to city, country to country, and just sharing the ministry of God. They're letting people know that there is a difference after Jesus died, and now they can have a relationship with God. It's not only for a specific type of person. He comes for the Jew and the Gentile. So they've made churches, and Paul looks over at Barnabas and is like, let's go check on our people. Let's go check on the people we preach to in their churches and see how they're doing. And Barnabas is like, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to bring my nephew. And this is where I think Paul's like, ugh. And he checks himself. He speaks godly, and he's like, I don't know if bringing John Mark, who is his nephew, is wise. Some background on John Mark is that John Mark went along with Barnabas and Paul earlier in Acts, and things didn't go the way they were supposed to go, okay? Preaching the word of God is not always going to be butterflies and splendid beauty, right? It's going to be rough. It's going to have times where there's mobs, disrespect, and it's only speculations of why John Mark left, but in the midst of them preaching and doing ministry work, John Mark dips. And Paul sees that as a character defect right now. He just has to grow up a little bit. I don't think it's wise for him to come back with us to check on our people when he wasn't able to keep his feet firmly in God as we walked the first time. This affected or insulted Barnabas. Barnabas is like, no, that's my nephew, man. That's my homie. That's the boy. And this is where the way my Nana put it was, blood is thicker than mud, right? He chose his nephew. And Paul wasn't disrespectful. He was just like, I just don't think it's wise, but if you choose to, we can't go on the same path. Good luck with what you do. I'm going to go with my boy Silas, and we're just going to go our separate ways for a little bit. I love you. I just can't rock with you right now. So we're going to jump over to Acts 16:16, and this is where now Paul and the main character Silas are now walking, and they have left a temple, and when they left this temple, there's a psychic who has a spirit upon her and sees them and is like, these are the men from the high mighty God. They have come to make a difference, basically. They have come to set us free. And so she follows them for days on end, repeating, this is the men of God. These are the men of God. They've come. And she's not by herself. She's actually a slave. And so the slave owner is following along with this woman. At a distance, I think, my perspective. He wouldn't just be like, he would be like, why does she keep doing this? And so the way it's dissected is that this spirit knew that God anointed these two men and was troubled by this. So Paul is getting a little fed up, it says in the Bible, that he's just like, he doesn't get mad at the woman. He gets mad at the spirit that is triggering her to speak. So he looks at the spirit and says, come out in the name of Jesus Christ. And the spirit left her, which means that she was no longer having those psychic abilities, which triggered the anger of her slave owner. The slave owner is like, this is my money. This is my shmoney. Why are you messing with my girl? And now he has beaten Silas and Paul. And now they have now been dragged into the city square where he reports them to the Roman leaders and is saying that they have been disrespectful to the Roman law. And now there's a mob involved. And they're watching over Silas and Paul and seeing how the judges are going to move about this and how the officers will move about this. And they choose to please the audience. So they beat Paul and Silas. It says they were black and blue. And the judges said, throw them under the jail, basically, and put them under lock and key, and someone's going to watch them so they do not escape. Ow. Just for freeing someone of their spirit that's not of God? Dang. Darn, man. Dang, darn, dang. Ow. Black and blue. They ripped off his clothes. Now they're in the stony, wet cell, and they can't leave. If I were in their perspective, I would be overwhelmed. I'd be questioning if I should have gone. But John Mark isn't there. Barnabas are not there. It's just Paul and Silas. And they are committed and understand their purpose of why they're there. And they know that God's done it before, so he'll do it again. So they do not get consumed in sadness or in their pain. They actually sing hymns. It says they sing beautiful hymns to God and praise his name, which confuses the prisoners around them and the jailer. So at 12 o'clock at night, they're still praising God, giving him all the glory. And that's when God sends an earthquake that breaks the doors of the jail open. Big flex moment. And this is when all the prisoners look around, they're like, I'm out, right? And the jailer was asleep when this happened, but I think he's awoken by the earthquake, sees that the prisoners are gone, and he's about to take his own life because he's like, I'm in trouble. And so that's when Paul and Silas are like, hey, we're still here. Don't do that. And so the jailer is impacted by how they had a moment to get away and they chose to stay. There's something different about these two. So the jailer asks, what can I do to live a better life like this? And that's when Paul and Silas were able to speak the gospel and the glory of God and how he has made a way and always will make a way. This excites the jailer, and he actually shares this with his own family, and they have a feast. It says that they don't go to sleep. Instead, they are so excited they get baptized that night. And as they wait until the morning, Paul and Silas are now in company of this family, has now been baptized and chosen to ride with God as the driver. And that's when the judge and the Roman leaders find out the cells have been opened, the prisoners are gone, and they're basically saying, Paul and Silas, just go on your way, just go away. And this is what they tell the jailer. And the jailer is like so excited, you're good to go ahead, be free. And Paul's like, incorrect. They beat us, ripped our clothes off, and shamed us, but we're Roman citizens. We're just supposed to give them a protection. They should not hurt me because I'm one of them. So that's when he told the jailer to go back and tell the judges and the Roman leaders. And he is basically like, I'm not leaving until they walk me out and say sorry. And so that's when he told the judges. They actually are mortified by knowing that they are Roman citizens and they just mistreated them to please the audience, which are also Romans. No. So once the judges and the Roman leaders come, they walk away, they go on their way, but they stop by Lydia's house, who is one of an important members of the church. She started the first church. We're going to go in more detail about that later, but they do what they came to do, which is to check on the churches. They do what they're supposed to do and they go on their way. So what are we taking from this? Paul spoke up. Paul did not want to just go with the flow just to make Barnabas happy. Just like you don't just ride in a car just to make someone give you a free ride. It's not the compromise for Paul. He understood the purpose. And he understood that John Mark ditched me before, so I'm not going to make that choice again. In other words, Paul was mindful. He made sure, okay, we got the invitation, we got the idea at least. Let's go and check on our churches. But Barnabas threw a left hook, and I had to ask, who's riding with? Basically, I needed to understand that. And that's what Paul did here. He understood, okay, so you want to bring John Mark, that means I can't go this way with you. Because I've learned I can't trust him at this time in ministry. Not that he's a bad person, it's just unwise for me to ride with him again. Because I'll be focused on the purpose, I'll be focused on them, on him. And so he was able to do what many Christians, and I'm one of them, have to learn to do, which is ask who's driving, who's riding. Because it leads into understanding that once we choose to go along for the ride, we're now dining with them, going to Wendy's, going to Chick-fil-A with them. We're understanding that we have now chosen them to be in the prison cell with us. And I don't know if Paul would be happy to be in that cell with John Mark. Not in a mean way. There's only speculations of why John Mark left in the beginning. But Paul was so clear, and he stood respectfully and healthy in his standard. So he's like, I can't, because if what ended up happening happened, he would be in a cell with someone that'd be like, I'm gonna die, I'm a panic, You don't know how John Mark would have reacted and how Barnabas would have felt, because that's his nephew, you know? So understanding and being mindful of who I get in the car with leads to who I dine with. Paul understood this one. And us as Christians, we have to understand that, yeah, it's okay for us to ride with that person, but that means that now I'm associating with that person. Now I'm in a situation, in a place with that person. And lastly, it leads to us understanding that it may not allow us to be in the right car. What do I mean by that? By Paul saying no and going with Silas, he was in the right car. He rode with the right person. He knew that Silas would be the one for the job. And as we see in the story, they were able to allow a testimony to happen, a jailer and his family to be saved and baptized. And now they can't say that God isn't a big God. Big flex moment, right? But we don't know how it would have gone down if John Mark was there. So we understand that Paul was mindful. He was respectful of the choice Barnabas chose to make. And he rode in the right car. We have to understand this, because if we choose to ride with someone who we're not supposed to be in alignment with, it can deter us and impact the purpose placed on us or the calling we had, and ultimately affect our peace and freedom. So I want to give you some Bible verses that are going to help you connect to understanding why the company we keep is important. Not saying you need to cancel them. #cancel season is not a vibe here. But what I'm saying is we need to make sure that we take that step back and ask who is driving and who is riding. Because we want to stay in a God-centered walk. And spiritual alignment, as mentioned in episode 1 and 2, we want to walk in spiritual alignment, which means that we can't always do what we used to do. So we're going to use these Bible verses to strengthen us and armor us as we have to ask these maybe triggerish questions sometimes and make these choices sometimes not to rock with people we've made beautiful history with. So the first Bible verse is going to come from Matthew. And I'm excited about this one. I love the Bible. I get excited about everything in it. So we're in Matthew 12:33. And this is the New King James Version. I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. So, what is this trying to say to us? It's saying that when we walk with God, or we choose to go on this walk with God, they should be able to look at our fruit, may it be small or a drastic change, and see the transition that we made when we chose to no longer walk with the world and walk with God. And that when we look at a tree, a person, a character that they carry, we'll be able to see, okay, that's rotten fruit. I can't come back to this tree. I can't eat at this tree anymore. Because would you offer your child something off a rotten tree? No. You would understand that that person's probably not supposed to come and be in my orchard with me. They're not supposed to be in the car with me. I'm not supposed to be in the car with them. Which leads into our second verse, which is in 1 Corinthians 5:10-12. And I'm going to read this again verbatim from New King James Version. It says, "Yet I certainly did not mean with sexual immoral people of this world, or with covetous, extortioners, idolaters, since you would need to go out of the world. But now I have written to you not to keep company with anyone named a brother who is sexually immoral, covetous, idolater, rivaler, drunkard, or extortioner. Not even eat with the person, for what I have to do with judging those who are on the outside. Do you not judge those who are on the inside?" This one is sometimes convicting. This one really got to me in the beginning because I was this covetous person. I was this drunkard. I walked not in alignment, but I was saying, God knows who I am and he loves me how I am, right? But it's clearly saying here that we're not to be kicking it with people who choose not to rock with the kingdom. We'll know them by their fruit of their tree. And people who are paying witness, like the jailer, will pay attention to who you're rocking with. You can't be rocking this cross on your neck and then throwing it in a circle in a club the next week. It's something they're going to question and be like, okay, so that's what God's people do? You're not going to be in good alignment. People may not choose to go towards God, which is the ultimate purpose, because you chose to align yourself with fam bam from the past. Let me give you an example, connecting back to this high school story. If you rode with a good group of people that you've known since a kid, like since you're a little one, and they know that you don't rock like that, but they take you out to lunch to Wendy's, right? Num, 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 Baconator French fries. And then they drop you back off at school so that you're there in time. But they chose to skip class. Strike one. Now they skipped class. They've now gone to a Target, a Walmart, and now they got caught doing larceny, misdemeanor larceny. They shoplifted. And maybe that the person that fed you your food at Wendy's is now at Target or Walmart and sees this. And he goes up to the person like, no. There was one more extra person with them. They're also a shoplifter. They're also a bad person. Or they got reported for skipping and the teacher just saw you ride off with them and now you're assigned as a skipper too and marked absent, even though you didn't do what they did. But an outside person saw that and made their decision off of that. So that example connects to who you walk with, who you talk with and dine with will be who you are associated with. So and lastly, in 2 Thessalonians 3:13-15, it says, "But as for you, brethren, do not grow weary of doing good. And if anyone does not obey our word in this epistle, note that person and do not keep company with them, that they may not be ashamed. Yet do not count them as an enemy, but admonish them as your brother." So it's basically saying, and this is the New King James Version, it's saying, don't grow weary of walking with me in Christ. Don't grow weary of staying on campus just so that you don't get caught up in all the shenanigans that unfolds every time you ride with that person. Keep doing good. Keep seeking the kingdom. And don't get in alignment with them. Don't change who you are just for the free ride. It's okay for them to do what they're doing. One day they may find out and change their ways. But don't kick it with them and then feel shame, or they feel shame for what they're doing and you're not doing. I actually had a beautiful conversation with my siblings and they were asking me what I do and what I don't do. Do you drink like you used to? No, I don't drink like I used to, but I do have a nice glass of wine. But I have to know my limit. And if I see that they want to turn up, I may not go to that turn up. If they need a ride home, I'm happy to do that because it says Adamish, which means to encourage in their walk. I will show up for you, but I won't participate in what I used to do because that brought me out of my character. That brought me back into my sin. And I can't align with that. They're amazing people. I love them. But if they want to do that, I can't do that. If I want to have a glass of wine, I'll have a glass of wine, but I will make sure that I'm still in alignment with my Father. You know what I'm saying here? So we just need to understand that we can't be claiming them as their representative. We can't be walking around saying, that's my brother. They are who they are, and God loves them for who they are. He does love his creation. But we're supposed to walk as his children. And we don't want to show our tail when we leave the house. This connects back to episode 2. We want to be a great representation for God because we don't know who's paying attention to this. You know? So we're going to do some takeaways from this. And I hope we understand that we're not supposed to cancel people. We're not supposed to disrespect people and shame them. We're supposed to love them where they are and identify the fruit of their tree. If they're choosing not to choose God, that's okay. That is their choice. But we don't rock with them the same way we used to rock with them. We don't go off campus with them. We don't go and travel with them knowing that, you know what? They're not going to support my walk. Paul was respectful. It's just like, I don't think it's wise. I love them, but I can't do that. I can't kick it with some of the people I used to kick it with because I don't drink like that. I don't throw it in a circle like I used to. I don't do that. So if that's what they're expecting of me, I don't want them to feel shame for me not wanting to do that anymore. I'll love them for where I am. And if they have any questions, hit me up. I would love to kick it because it's all love over here. All love. And I get to have a testimony story here to say that I was able to tell my family how I want to walk, and they loved me through it. I don't know if I carried myself, and I don't believe I did carry myself very well in the beginning of my Christian walk, where I feel as if I shamed them. So 2 Thessalonians hit really close for me because they're just living their lives, and I chose to differentiate myself. And I got the most heart-shaking question from one of my siblings where they're asking, so I don't have a sister anymore? I was like, no, you do. So this is what I mean by there's no cancellation here. You're not shaming them. You choosing God should not bring shame to them. That should only make them excited to see how you walk. Because I get to still have beautiful relationships with my family, and they respect my walk. If they didn't, then I would have to adjust myself. I would have to move differently. But the fruit of their tree is nice fruit so far. So that's all I can go off of. And I know that God knows their heart. Not me, but God does. So what are our takeaways? Our remember me's. These are important to reflect on because we've all been that hard-headed person. We've all rode in the wrong car at lunch and ended up being marked absent because we are now stuck on the side of the road. We're now broke because we had to give $10 for a drive down the street. And gas just got to that shenanigans level. So like, I digress. This hits home a little bit for me right here. But our job is to learn from that ride and make sure that we allow God to be at the driver's seat. Like Paul did. Paul allowed God to be at the driver's seat, and an earthquake happened, and all the doors opened. Yes, he was black and blue. But that's the ministry he chose. He chose God for life. And that time came with a lot of abuse and pain. It does say in the Bible that we will be prosecuted, beaten, arrested, shamed, cut off. But we're not supposed to do it to others. That's the difference here. So maybe you eat on campus. Maybe you don't go on that trip to Dubai with your girl who has a suspicious boyfriend. Maybe it's okay to have FOMO, fear of missing out. It's okay. But you're in alignment, and what you have with God is worth, and you can't find something that's going to equal up to it. I promise you, it's much sweeter and has so much more value. Just like when you're a junior in high school and my 30 to 35 minutes was my peace, my happiness, and I couldn't just give it up to everybody, you know? So, what are our takeaways? Our takeaways are to be mindful of who you ride along with and who's driving. A lot of people you'll meet will say, oh, I know Jesus, and Jesus just loved me where I'm at. Careful with that statement, because God does love you where you're at, but through him and only through him alone will you strive for better or want to do better, and he will correct those things. So we are just to go off the base of their tree, the fruit of their tree. If they're saying, yeah, I love me some Jesus, and their tree is still full of rotten fruit, that's God revealing that to you. Not to shame them, just to not get in the same car as them, not to ride with them, not to invest your time in that, because it may impact the mission or the calling God has for you. So being mindful of who you ride along with. 2, who you ride along with leads to you kicking it and dining with them. And this allows us to understand that when Paul spoke up in a healthy way, it let every party understand that I love you, I care for you, and I want the best for you. But I can't go on that same pathway as you. I can't be dining with you if John Mark is going to be in the picture at this time. And I want to give a fast forward moment. John Mark and Paul, they reconciled. Paul actually needed John Mark at one point. And he actually is one of the authors of Mark in the Bible. So everyone has a turnaround story. That's why I'm so serious about not canceling people, because you don't know what part of the Bible they're a part of. If this is just a blooper season for them, you know? So understanding that the choice they make is their choice. If they choose not to rock with God at this time, that is okay. It's fine. Don't chase them down, but just encourage them. Allow them to see your walk. Don't block them. Allow them to see your walk. Allow them to see how, yes, I love my God. Yes, I love my family. Yes, I love my Bible. But that does not mean I do not care for you. I just have my alignment and my purpose set. And it's on God. That's okay. It's okay. Encourage them. And lastly, understanding who we ride along with and kick it with allows us to dine with them. Now allows others to associate us with them. The jailer associates Paul with Silas and how they helped baptize him. Don't be associated with those who are creating misdemeanor larceny or skipping classes, connecting it back to the high school feel, right? Understanding that you have been loved. You have chosen to transition. You have chosen to walk differently. So it's okay to love them from afar. In a different country, a different state, a different county. It's okay. But just like Paul and Silas understood their mission, there was a testimony and a miracle that was able to happen from it. So we need to understand that just because we love them doesn't mean we have to ride in the same car with them, because we can be missing out on the car we're supposed to be in. Just a reflection moment there. We've talked about a lot here. We've dissected a lot here, and we left no crumbs, period. Right? So what do we need to remember as we leave today is who you ride with is who you dine with. And who you dine with is who you're associated with. Those are important because as children of God, people are watching. They're always watching. And we want them to want to have the conversation with us. They want to come near us. They want to have that salt, as we talked about in Colossians 4, right? We want to have that valuable conversation that leaves them tasting delicious, right? Leaving with, wow, that was a great conversation. And I didn't know that Christians could walk like that or talk like that or just be like that, right? So, hope you understand that Paul was aligned with God so clearly that he was able to leave people, spaces, environments, and still have healthy relationships. He made sure he was magnifying the Lord. That was his main focus. And as Christians, as baby Christians, as those who are just dipping a toe, I am here to say to some of you, just ask the question of who's riding with and adjust your choice off of that. To some of you, I'm saying you now know who's riding with, and it's okay because you saw the fruit of their tree and made your choice. And lastly, to some of you, I'm saying, I know FOMO sucks. It sucks. And you want to be there. You want to do what you used to do or be in that place that they're in. But don't grow weary of doing good in your walk. What you have with God is so much better. And you will be rewarded for your choices. We've talked about a lot. I'm just so happy you joined me here. So thank you for joining me. And I pray that this message hit home for you, healed a place in you, relieved a trigger for you. And if you feel some conviction or you felt that I came for your roots or your edges or something, I'm sorry. But it needed to be said. And I would challenge you to have a conversation with God, because I'm not here to condemn you. As a sister in Christ, I am here to encourage you to look inward, reflect on what has been said, and see if you're in alignment with God. Do you just know of God, or are you in a relationship with God? Because if you're in a relationship, it goes both ways. God's just not accepting. You're wanting to give. It's not just a bank account where you're just withdrawing, you're depositing. So ask him, reflect on this, and see if you're in alignment, or if you're riding in the wrong space or in the wrong place or in the wrong environment. I can't decide that for you. We can only go off the fruit of your tree. I don't know what part of the story I'm coming in on with you, but I'm going to love you through it. So it's been a gift to be able to speak with you, and I know that God has assigned me this opportunity to dissect his word and give understanding to his textbook so you know his love for yourself. So thank you for dissecting the textbook and leaving no crumbs. To my faith until you make it, keep marching. You do not know when the walls of Jericho will fall down in your situation. To my, I'm overwhelmed by fines. I'm one of you. I get it. I understand it. But focus on the good. Ask God to reveal or redirect your eyes to what is actually in movement. Because when we cast our burdens on him, we just sit in thanksgiving. Thank you for the breath of my lungs, Father. I may only have $4.32 to my account. And yeah, I only have that McDonald's gift card right now. But it's still a good thing. To my brothers and sisters and friends out there who are just questioning your existence and why did God make a mistake with you? He didn't. I am here to tell you he didn't. You are important, intricately made, and you don't know your purpose, but God does. All we have to do is talk to him about it. So let's have that conversation with him. So thank you for joining me again. Thank you. Join me next week, Tuesday, as we dissect another part of the textbook. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your brothers and sisters that this may hit home with. I'll see you there. Bye.